I stood in my parents' formal dining room on a Tuesday evening, staring at documents that would destroy my life. I was 32 years old, founder and CEO of TechFlow Solutions, a data analytics company. I had built from nothing to a $200 million valuation over 7 years. My parents, Harold and Patricia, sat across from me with my younger sister, Courtney. My father slid papers across the mahogany table. The words blurred, but one phrase, cut clear, transfer of ownership. Courtney was now CEO and majority shareholder. My mother's voice was ice. You were just the builder, Ferdinand. Courtney understands business. I did not argue. I pulled out my phone, made one call, and watched their faces drain of color. I walked out of that house in Greenwich, Connecticut, got into my car and drove. My hands shook on the steering wheel, not from fear, from rage so pure it felt like lightning in my chest. But I kept my face calm, because I had learned something building TechFlow over 7 years: emotion clouds, judgment. Strategy wins wars. Let me tell you what just happened and what that phone call meant. I graduated from MIT at 23 with degrees in computer science and business. Moved to a studio apartment in Cambridge with my roommate Graham, who became my co-founder and chief technology officer. We started TechFlow in that 400-square-foot space, sleeping on an air mattress, eating ramen, writing code 18 hours a day. The idea was simple but powerful: artificial intelligence-powered data analytics that could predict market trends, consumer behavior, and business outcomes with unprecedented accuracy. We were not the first to try this. We were just the first to make it actually work. 7 years later, TechFlow had 350 employees, offices in Manhattan and San Francisco, and 12 Fortune 500 clients paying us millions annually. Our AI platform was revolutionary. Our contracts were ironclad. Our valuation hit $200 million last quarter. Graham owned 15% of the company. I owned 45%. We were profitable, growing, unstoppable. But I made a mistake. A terrible, naive, stupid mistake. 2 months ago, my father called me. Harold Blackwell, chairman of Hartford Financial Group, a Connecticut investment firm managing $2 billion for old money families. He had never supported TechFlow, called it computer games when I started. Told me to get a real job at his firm. But that phone call was different. He said he was proud of me. Said he wanted to be part of what I had built. Said a real family business includes family. Those words hit something deep in me. I had spent my whole life trying to earn my parents' approval. They had always favored Courtney, my younger sister. She was the golden child. Harvard MBA, poised, confident, everything they wanted. I was the awkward son who liked computers more than people. So when my father offered to invest $10 million in TechFlow in exchange for 40% equity, I said yes. I did not need the money. The company was profitable, but I needed his approval. I needed to feel like part of the family. I restructured the company, gave my parents 40% equity, gave Courtney a vice president position because my mother insisted she needed to learn the business from the inside. I kept 45% for myself. Graham kept his 15%. I signed papers I barely read because they were family. Because you trust family. Tonight, I learned what that trust cost me. The documents my father showed me were legal, binding, and devastating. When I accepted their investment, I signed an agreement buried in 50 pages of legal text that gave my parents authority to restructure leadership for company optimization. The fine print I never read said this included replacing the CEO without founder consent if the board voted 4-1. They had installed a board when they invested. Harold as chairman, Patricia as member, 2 of their business associates, Douglas Brennan and Walter Hayes, 1 independent director, Angela Morrison, a former tech CEO. Tonight, they held a vote. Harold, Patricia, Douglas, and Walter voted to remove me as CEO and install Courtney. Angela voted against it. 4-1. Legal, binding, final. My father said, "You built something impressive, Ferdinand, but building and running are different skills. Courtney understands business operations, client relationships, and strategic growth. You are just the builder. Let the professionals take it from here. Just the builder." Those 3 words echoed in my skull as I drove. But I was not defenseless. Graham and I had not built a $200 million company by being naive about threats. We had built contingency protocols for various scenarios. corporate espionage, hostile investors, legal attacks, even family betrayal, though I never thought I would need that one. We called them protocols, numbered 1 through 10, each designed for a specific threat level. The phone call I made in my parents' dining room was to Graham. I said 4 words: execute Protocol 7, everything. Now, Protocol 7 founder, emergency extraction. When activated, it triggered a cascade of automated systems we had built into TechFlow's architecture. Every critical system locked out new leadership. All proprietary code algorithms and intellectual property encrypted with keys only Graham and I possessed. Automatic notifications sent to all major clients that leadership change was disputed and they should contact founder directly before proceeding with any contracts. Emergency board meeting called using provisions I had built into the bylaws. All vendor contracts, client relationships, and partnership agreements flagged for founder approval. The core AI engine shut down for mandatory maintenance, requiring founder authentication. By the time I got home that night, my phone was exploding with messages. Employees confused. Clients calling. The system displayed across every terminal in the office, awaiting founder authorization. I had locked them out of everything that mattered. I went to sleep that night feeling like I had won. I had struck first. I had protected what I built. I woke up the next morning and realized I had made everything worse. The board called an emergency meeting for 10 in the morning. I showed up with Graham. We walked into the conference room at TechFlow headquarters on 5th Avenue. My parents sat at the head of the table with Courtney between them. Douglas and Walter flanked them. Angela sat alone on the other side. Harold looked at me with something close to pity. "Ferdinand, this is disappointing. We hoped you would handle this transition professionally." I started to speak, but he held up his hand. "Let me show you something." He slid a document across the table. "This is the investment agreement you signed 2 months ago. Page 37, Section 12, Subsection 4. Read it." I read it. My stomach dropped. The agreement I signed gave my parents authority to restructure leadership for company optimization. It included replacing the CEO without founder consent if the board voted 4-1. It also included a clause I had completely missed any interference with legitimate business operations after such a vote constituted breach of fiduciary duty and grounds for immediate legal action. By locking down the systems, I had breached the agreement. Harold said, "We are prepared to be reasonable. Unlock all systems immediately. Transfer full administrative control to Courtney. Resign officially as CEO, but you can stay on as Chief Technical Advisor if you behave professionally. You keep your 45% equity. Everyone wins." He paused. "Or we vote right now to authorize legal action against you for sabotaging company operations, breaching your fiduciary duty as a shareholder, and causing material harm to business value. We will sue you personally for $50 million in damages. We will seek an injunction to freeze your assets, and we will have you removed from the company entirely." I looked at Angela. She looked sick. "I am sorry, Ferdinand. I think this is wrong, but legally, they are right. You should not have locked the systems." I looked at Graham. He looked terrified. Harold said, "You have 48 hours to comply. Unlock everything, transfer control, resign, or we file the lawsuit and you lose everything." The vote happened anyway. Just to make it official, Harold, Patricia, Douglas, and Walter voted to uphold Courtney's appointment and authorize legal action if I did not comply. Angela abstained. I walked out of that conference room realizing my power move had backfired completely. I had legal authority to lock the systems, but they had legal authority to destroy me if I did. I was not in a better position. I was in a far worse one. I hired a lawyer that afternoon, Marcus Webb, one of the top corporate attorneys in Manhattan. His office was on Park Avenue, all glass and steel and expensive art. His retainer was $50,000. I paid it without flinching because I thought I had the resources. I was wrong about that too. Marcus spent 3 days reviewing every document related to TechFlow, the investment agreement, the board structure, and the bylaws. When he called me back to his office, I knew from his face the news was bad. "Ferdinand, I am not going to sugarcoat this. The agreement you signed is airtight. They have legal authority to replace you as CEO. The board vote was legitimate. And by locking down the systems, you gave them grounds to sue you for breach of fiduciary duty." I sat there numb. There has to be something. A loophole. A technicality. Marcus shook his head. Fighting this in court would take years and cost millions. Your parents have unlimited resources through Hartford Financial Group. You have company equity, but no liquid capital. They can outspend you 100 to 1. So what do I do? You comply. You unlock the systems. You resign. You keep your equity stake and move on. Start another company. You are young. You are talented. This is not the end, but it felt like the end. The 48-hour deadline loomed. I sat in my apartment in Manhattan, a luxury place in Tribeca. I had bought a year ago when TechFlow hit $100 million valuation. 3 bedrooms, floor-to-ceiling windows view of the Hudson River. Rent was $8,000 a month. I stared at my laptop. The deadline was in 6 hours. I could comply, unlock everything, let Courtney take over, keep my equity, and walk away. Or I could fight. Graham came over. We sat on my couch, drinking coffee at midnight. He said, "Ferdinand, maybe they are right. Maybe you should let it go. We can start something new together." I looked at him. "You want me to just give up? I want you to be smart. This fight will destroy you. They have all the power." I built TechFlow. Every algorithm, every client relationship, every piece of that company came from my work. And they think they can just take it because I trusted them. Graham was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "What are you going to do?" "I am going to fight." The deadline passed at noon the next day. I did not unlock the systems. I did not resign. Instead, I released a statement to all TechFlow employees explaining what had happened, how my parents had maneuvered to steal the company, how the board vote was engineered, how I was fighting to protect what we built together. Many employees supported me. Others were worried about their jobs. The company was paralyzed. No one knew who was in charge. Within 3 hours of the deadline passing, my parents filed the lawsuit. It was brutal. They sued me personally for breach of fiduciary duty, tortious interference with business operations, theft of trade secrets, because they claimed the encryption keys were company property, not personal assets, and damages of $50 million. Worse, they filed for and received a temporary restraining order. A judge granted an emergency motion to freeze my assets pending trial. My bank accounts froze. My equity stake froze. I could not access my money. I could not sell or transfer my shares. I had $3,000 in cash in my wallet and 1 credit card. Marcus told me he would need a $100,000 retainer to continue representing me in this expanded litigation. I had $3,000. I had to move out of my apartment. Could not pay the rent. Graham let me crash in his spare bedroom in his house in Brooklyn. His wife Charlotte was polite, but clearly unhappy about it. My girlfriend Jenna had been supportive through the initial conflict. She was a physician at Mount Sinai Hospital, smart and compassionate. We had been together for 2 years. I thought maybe she was the one. But as the lawsuit progressed and my life fell apart, she started pulling away. One night, 3 weeks into the legal battle, she came over to Graham's place. We sat in his backyard, and she said, "Ferdinand, I love you, but I cannot watch you destroy yourself over this. They are offering you a settlement. 15% equity, no lawsuit, a clean break. Take it, move on, start over." I said, "If I take that settlement, I lose everything I built. I go from 45% to 15%. I let them win." She said, "Is winning worth losing your life?" We broke up that night, she cried. I did not. I think part of me had already shut down emotionally. I was in survival mode. Meanwhile, the media coverage was destroying my reputation. Courtney and my parents hired a public relations firm. Stories started appearing everywhere. TechCrunch ran a piece, "Tech founder holds company hostage after being replaced." Business Insider wrote, "When founders cannot let go, the Ferdinand Blackwell case." The Wall Street Journal quoted anonymous sources saying I was unstable, vindictive, and unable to handle accountability. The narrative was, clear, spoiled tech founder throws tantrum when held responsible acts like child needs to grow up. My reputation was shredded. Some TechFlow employees who initially supported me started turning against me. They were worried about the company surviving. They needed their jobs. They had families to support. I understood, but it still hurt. 2 months into the legal battle, Harold sent a message through the lawyers. A settlement offer, final offer, Take it or face escalation. The terms: drop the fight, restore access to all systems, resign officially as founder and CEO. In exchange, keep 15% equity down from 45%, no lawsuit, no criminal charges. Criminal charges. That was new. Marcus explained, they are threatening to file criminal complaints for computer fraud, theft of trade secrets, wire fraud, because you blocked interstate business communications. These are federal charges. Ferdinand, prison time. I had 72 hours to accept or reject. I rejected it. They filed criminal charges the day after I rejected the settlement. The complaint went to the United States Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York. Hartford Financial Group, represented by my parents, accused me of violating the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, theft of trade secrets, and wire fraud. The federal prosecutor took the case. I was arrested at Graham's house on a Thursday morning, 6 in the morning. Agents knocked on the door. Graham answered in his pajamas. They had a warrant. I was handcuffed, read my rights, and taken to federal detention in Manhattan. The perp walk. Cameras everywhere, because somehow the media knew exactly when and where. My mugshot appeared on every tech news site within an hour. Bail was set at $500,000. I did not have $500,000. My assets were frozen. Marcus scrambled to find a bail bondsman, but my financial situation was too complicated. Graham mortgaged his house. He put up the equity he and Charlotte had built over 8 years to bail me out. Charlotte cried when she found out. I heard her through the walls that night yelling at Graham, "He is destroying us. Why are you doing this?" Graham said, "Because he is my best friend." But I could see the strain. Their marriage was fracturing because of me. The criminal trial was scheduled for 4 months out. Marcus brought in a criminal defense attorney, Sarah Kim, who specialized in white-collar cases. She was expensive. Her retainer was $200,000. I did not have it. She agreed to defer payment until after trial, contingent on winning. If I lost, I would owe her anyway. Meanwhile, TechFlow moved on without me. Courtney unlocked the systems using a workaround Graham helped implement. He did not want to, but he was served with a subpoena threatening contempt charges. He had no choice. Courtney took over as CEO. And something unexpected happened. She was good at it. Courtney brought in new executives from my parents' network. She stabilized client relationships. She reassured employees. She made strategic decisions that actually worked. After 2 months under her leadership, TechFlow was functioning smoothly. This destroyed my legal argument that I was essential to the company. If the company could thrive without me, why should I get it back? The employees who had been loyal to me started accepting her leadership. The company kept growing. New contracts signed. Revenue increased. I watched from the outside, frozen out, facing criminal charges, broke alone. Jenna had moved on. I saw on social media she was dating someone new. A cardiothoracic surgeon. Stable. Successful. Not facing federal prison. Graham's wife Charlotte told him one night, and I heard through the walls, "You need to stop enabling Ferdinand. He needs to accept reality and let go. This obsession is going to destroy your life too." Graham was torn. I could see it. Loyalty to me versus protecting his family. Then, Courtney made her move. She reached out to Graham privately, invited him to lunch, made him an offer. Stay on as Chief Technology Officer. Increase his equity from 15% to 25%. Salary raised to $400,000 annually, but he had to publicly support the leadership transition and distance himself from me. Graham told me about the offer. We sat in his kitchen. Charlotte was upstairs pregnant with their first child, 3 months along. I said, "What are you going to do?" He said, "I do not know." His hands shook. His house was mortgaged for my bail. His wife was pregnant and furious. His job was in jeopardy. And Courtney was offering him security money and a future. I said, "If you need to take it, I understand." He looked at me with tears in his eyes. "I do not want to abandon you. You have a family, Graham. You have a baby coming. I cannot ask you to sacrifice everything for me." He said, "Let me think about it." Courtney gave him 1 week to decide. The criminal trial started 3 weeks later. The prosecution was aggressive. The prosecutor, James Whitmore, painted me as an entitled tech founder who could not handle being held accountable. He brought in expert witnesses who testified that my actions caused millions of dollars in damages to TechFlow. He showed emails where I discussed locking them out with Graham. The evidence looked damning. Marcus and Sarah did their best. They argued that the underlying business dispute was fraudulent, that I was protecting my own creation, that the charges were retaliatory. But the jury looked skeptical. Graham was subpoenaed to testify. He sat on the witness stand looking miserable. Under oath, he admitted that yes, Ferdinand had locked down the systems deliberately. Yes, it was planned. Yes, it disrupted business operations. He tried to explain the context, but the prosecutor cut him off. Just answer yes or no. Did the defendant deliberately lock down TechFlow's systems? Yes. Did this prevent legitimate business operations? Yes. Did this cause harm to the company and its clients? Graham hesitated. Then, yes. The prosecutor sat down. No further questions. Graham looked at me from the witness stand. He mouthed, "I am sorry." The jury deliberated for 6 hours. The verdict came back on a Friday afternoon. Guilty. 2 counts of computer fraud. I was now a convicted felon. Sentencing was set for 3 weeks out. I was looking at 14 to 20 months in federal prison. Marcus filed appeals, but he was honest with me. Chances were slim. The evidence was clear. I had done what they said I did. The question was whether it was justified. The jury said no. I was broke. I owed Marcus $70,000 in legal fees. He had reduced his rates because he believed in me, but it was still enormous. I owed Sarah even more. I had no income. My equity was still frozen. I was a convicted felon, which meant I could not work in tech with a computer fraud conviction on my record. My LinkedIn profile was deactivated. My professional reputation was destroyed. Articles called me a cautionary tale. The founder who could not let go. The builder who thought he was irreplaceable. Meanwhile, TechFlow was thriving under Courtney. The company closed a major new client, a financial services firm worth $15 million annually. Company valuation increased to $250 million. Forbes ran a feature, "The CEO Who Saved TechFlow." The article celebrated Courtney as someone who stepped in when the founder became erratic and unstable. It praised my parents as wise investors who made tough family decisions for the company's health. I was the villain. They were the heroes. I moved out of Graham's house. I could not stay there anymore. His wife was about to have their baby, and she made it clear I was not welcome. Graham gave me $5,000, all he could spare, and I found a bed at a homeless shelter in the Bronx. A homeless shelter. I went from founder of a $200 million company to sleeping on a cot in a room with 40 other men. My sentencing hearing was in 2 days. That night, lying in that shelter, I thought about giving up. Just accepting whatever sentence the judge gave me, serving my time, disappearing after prison. Maybe moving to another state, changing my name, starting over with nothing. I had lost everything. My company, my money, my relationship, my best friend, my reputation, my freedom. The one call I made that was supposed to save me had destroyed me instead. I closed my eyes and tried to sleep, but all I could see was my father's face saying, "You were just the builder." Then, the next morning, something changed. A woman approached me at the shelter. Mid-40s, professional suit, carrying a briefcase. She looked out of place. She said, "Ferdinand Blackwell." I said yes. She sat down across from me at one of the tables in the common area. "My name is Diane Porter. I am an investigator with the Securities and Exchange Commission. I have been following your case, and I have been investigating your parents' firm, Hartford Financial Group, for 3 years." I stared at her. She continued, "I think you might have information that could help me, and I think I might be able to help you." Diane Porter opened her briefcase and pulled out a folder. She slid it across the table. Hartford Financial Group is under investigation for securities fraud. They have been using insider information, manipulating investments, and defrauding clients for years. We have been building a case, but we need something concrete. Something that proves a pattern of fraudulent behavior. I opened the folder. Inside were financial documents, email printouts, and investigation notes. All heavily redacted, but enough to show this was real. She said, "Your case caught my attention 6 months ago. A family investment firm that suddenly takes over a successful tech startup, forces out the founder, and uses legal maneuvering to do it." That pattern looked familiar. "We have been tracking similar situations with other companies Hartford has invested in." I said, "You think they have done this before?" "I know they have. At least 7 other times in the past decade. Small companies' successful founders. Mysterious leadership changes. But we have never been able to prove it was systematic fraud. Until now. TechFlow might be the key. She explained that if the SEC could prove my parents used fraudulent means to acquire TechFlow, it would open up their entire corporate structure to scrutiny. Every investment, every acquisition, every client relationship, but there was a problem. I cannot promise anything about your criminal case, Diane said. That is a separate matter. But if you cooperate with our investigation, if we can prove your parents engineered this fraudulently, there might be grounds for appeal. At minimum, we can make sure they do not get away with it. I looked at her. Everyone who has tried to help me has gotten burned. My lawyer, my girlfriend, my best friend. Why should I trust you? She showed me her credentials, her badge, her case file with 3 years of documented investigation. She showed me evidence they had already gathered on Hartford Financial Group, wire transfers, suspicious patterns, client complaints. Because I am not doing this for you, she said. I am doing this because your parents have been stealing from people for a decade and no one has stopped them. You are just the latest victim. Help me make sure you are the last one. I had my sentencing hearing in 12 hours. I had nothing left to lose. I asked, what do you need? She said, everything. Your timeline, your documents, access to any files you still have. Anything that shows this was planned in advance. I thought about it, then I remembered something. I might have something, I said. That night, I went to a public library. I still had my old laptop, the personal one, not the company one. I logged into my email account, the personal one I had used before. TechFlow became big. I started searching, going back years, looking for the email chains from when my parents first invested, and I found it, an email from 5 months before the investment. From my father to his attorney, a man named Richard Caldwell. The email said, make sure the restructuring clause is broad enough. Once Ferdinand signs, we can move Courtney in within a year or two. He will never see it coming. I kept reading, kept searching. More emails. My father to Walter Hayes, one of the board members. We will need your vote when the time comes. There will be compensation for your support. My mother to Douglas Brennan, the other board member. Ferdinand trusts us. That will make this easier. Courtney has been preparing. She will be ready. An email chain between my parents discussing their strategy. My father wrote, the boy has built something valuable. Courtney deserves a real opportunity. Once we control the board, we can make the transition. This was not a sudden decision. This was not my parents trying to help the company. This was a plan. Months in advance. Before they even invested. They wanted to steal TechFlow and give it to Courtney. The cruelty of it took my breath away. I kept searching. Found more. Emails discussing how they would handle my inevitable resistance. Plans for how they would use legal pressure to force me out. Discussion of board members being promised consulting fees and positions once Courtney took over. Douglas Brennan was promised a $200,000 annual consulting contract. Walter Hayes was promised shares in TechFlow. Both were supposed to be independent board members. This was textbook conflict of interest and breach of fiduciary duty. I downloaded everything, saved it to a flash drive, called Diane Porter at 3 in the morning. She answered on the second ring. What did you find? Everything, I said. They planned this before they invested. There is a paper trail. I met her at her office at 6 in the morning. She reviewed the emails with her team. 3 other investigators huddled around a conference table. One of them, a man named Robert Chen, said, this is fraud, conspiracy, breach of fiduciary duty. Maybe even RICO if we can show a pattern. Diane said, this changes everything. But there was a problem. My criminal trial was separate. This evidence might not be admissible because it was not relevant to the computer fraud charges. I had still locked down the systems. I was still guilty of what they charged me with. However, it could be grounds for a civil countersuit. And it could be leverage with the prosecutor. Marcus came to the meeting. Reviewed everything. We can use this. Maybe not in the criminal trial directly, but we can show the prosecutor. Show them the complaint against Ferdinand was filed in bad faith as part of a scheme to steal his company. The sentencing hearing was at 2 in the afternoon. Marcus filed an emergency motion that morning. He presented the new evidence to Judge Patricia Valdez, and asked for a stay of sentencing pending investigation of prosecutorial misconduct. The prosecutor, James Whitmore, objected strongly. This is a desperate attempt to delay justice. The defendant was convicted by a jury. These emails, even if authentic, do not change what he did. Judge Valdez reviewed the emails. She looked troubled. Mr. Webb, this is highly irregular, but the allegations are serious. I am granting a 30-day stay of sentencing. If the SEC investigation yields evidence of fraud in the underlying business dispute, we will revisit the conviction. Until then, Mr. Blackwell remains out on bail. I walked out of that courthouse with the smallest glimmer of hope I had felt in months, but I was wrong to hope. Within a week, everything got worse again. Graham made his decision. He met me at a coffee shop in Brooklyn. I could see it in his face before he said anything. I am taking Courtney's offer, he said. Charlotte is about to have the baby. We almost lost the house. I cannot keep fighting this, Ferdinand. I am sorry. I understood. I told him I understood. But it still felt like a knife in my chest. My last true ally was gone. I will still be your friend, Graham said, but I am staying with TechFlow. I have to. He left. I sat there alone with cold coffee. The SEC investigation continued, but it was slow. Diane warned me it could take months. Meanwhile, my sentencing was delayed, but not dismissed. I was still a convicted felon, still broke, still living in a shelter. Then I got a call from Marcus. We have a problem. My parents had learned about the email evidence, probably through their attorneys monitoring court filings. And they struck first. They filed a police report claiming I had illegally accessed their private email accounts. They said I had hacked their personal communications. They filed for a restraining order, claiming they feared for their safety because I had become unstable and dangerous. The judge granted the restraining order. I could not contact my parents or come within 500 feet of their property. And worse, the Manhattan District Attorney started investigating whether I had committed unauthorized computer access, a state crime, separate from the federal charges. My evidence was now potentially inadmissible because they claimed it was obtained illegally. Marcus said, if the prosecutor believes you hacked to get those emails, everything is tainted. We cannot use it. The journalist I had reached out to, Amy Carlson from Wired magazine, had been investigating the story. She called me. My legal department killed the article. They are worried that if the emails were obtained illegally, publishing them could expose Wired to lawsuits. I am sorry, Ferdinand. I believe you, but my hands are tied. Everything was falling apart again. The criminal trial resumed. The jury had already convicted me, but now they were discussing sentencing recommendations. With the new hacking allegations, the prosecutor pushed for the maximum 20 months federal prison. Judge Valdez set a new sentencing date, 3 weeks out. Meanwhile, TechFlow was thriving. Courtney was on the cover of Fortune magazine, the CEO who saved a founder's legacy. The article praised her leadership, her vision, her ability to take a chaotic situation and create stability. My parents were celebrated as wise investors. The article quoted my father, "Sometimes you have to make hard family decisions for the greater good. We love our son, but we had to do what was right for the company and its employees." I was the footnote. The unstable founder who could not handle success. I owed Marcus $80,000 now, owed Sarah even more. Had no way to pay them. My equity was still frozen. I had no income, no prospects, no future, and I was going to prison. I sat in the shelter one night 3 days before sentencing, and I thought about just disappearing, violating bail, running, starting over somewhere else with a fake name, but I was too tired to run. Then, the night before sentencing, Diane Porter called me. "Ferdinand, I need you to come to my office. Tonight. Right now." I went. It was 11 at night. Her office was empty, except for her and 2 other investigators. She said, "We found something in the Hartford Financial Group files, something that changes everything." She showed me printouts of emails, old emails, from 7 years ago, before TechFlow even existed. An email from my father to my mother. "Ferdinand has no ambition. He wastes his time on computers. Maybe if he ever builds something worthwhile, we can use it to give Courtney a real career. She is the one with true potential." My mother's response: "Agreed. If our son ever amounts to anything, we will find a way to transfer it to our daughter. Courtney deserves success more than Ferdinand does. We can position ourselves when the time comes." This email was dated 2 years before I even started TechFlow. They had been planning to steal anything I built before I built it. They were waiting, watching, ready to take whatever I created and give it to their favorite child. I read those emails 3 times. The cruelty was bottomless. Diane said, "This proves premeditation. This proves everything. The investment was not about supporting you. It was about positioning themselves to steal your company when you succeeded. This is fraud. This is conspiracy. This is a pattern of behavior." I said, "Will this help my case?" She said, "I am taking this to the U.S. attorney tomorrow morning. This shows the criminal complaint was filed in bad faith as part of a coordinated scheme. Combined with everything else, I think we can get your conviction vacated." I wanted to believe her, but I had been disappointed too many times. The sentencing hearing was at 2 in the afternoon the next day. I stood before Judge Valdez at 2 in the afternoon wearing a borrowed suit from Marcus because I could not afford my own. The courtroom was packed. Media in the back rows. My parents sitting with Courtney and their attorneys. Graham was there too, sitting on the opposite side, avoiding my eyes. Marcus stood beside me. He had filed a motion that morning based on Diane Porter's new evidence. The emails from 7 years ago. The proof of premeditation. Marcus addressed the court. "Your Honor, new evidence has emerged that fundamentally changes the context of this case. The SEC has uncovered communications between the defendant's parents proving they planned to steal his company before it even existed. The criminal complaint that led to these charges was filed in bad faith as part of a coordinated fraud scheme. We request the court vacate the conviction and dismiss all charges." Prosecutor James Whitmore stood. "Your Honor, this is yet another delay tactic. The defendant was convicted by a jury for actions he admittedly took. Whatever dispute existed in the underlying business relationship does not excuse computer fraud. The conviction should stand, and sentencing should proceed." Judge Valdez looked at the evidence. She read through the emails Diane had provided. Her expression was troubled, but cautious. "Mr. Webb, these emails are concerning. However, they do not directly address the criminal conduct for which Mr. Blackwell was convicted. He did lock down company systems. He did disrupt business operations. That is not in dispute." Marcus said, "But he did so to protect himself from an ongoing fraud. That provides context for his actions." The judge considered. "I am not prepared to vacate the conviction today. However, given the SEC investigation and these new allegations, I am staying sentencing for an additional 30 days. If the SEC investigation yields charges against the parents or evidence of systemic fraud, we will revisit this matter. Until then, Mr. Blackwell remains convicted and out on bail." I walked out of that courthouse with a temporary reprieve, but no victory. 30 more days of uncertainty. The SEC investigation accelerated. Diane and her team subpoenaed records from Hartford Financial Group. They interviewed Douglas Brennan and Walter Hayes, the board members who had voted to install Courtney. Walter cracked first. Under pressure from federal investigators faced with potential perjury charges, he admitted the truth. He had been promised a $200,000 consulting contract and shares in TechFlow if he voted to install Courtney as CEO. He had a written agreement with my father. This was breach of fiduciary duty, fraud, conspiracy. Douglas Brennan lawyered up immediately, but the evidence was mounting. The SEC found similar patterns with other companies Hartford had invested in over the past decade. Small, successful firms, where founders were mysteriously forced out and replaced with people connected to my parents. 7 other companies. 7 other founders who lost everything. TechFlow was not unique. It was a pattern. The media started picking up the story. Amy Carlson at Wired finally got approval to publish her investigation. The article ran with the headline, "How a Connecticut Investment Firm Systematically Steals Companies from Founders." It went viral. TechCrunch followed up. Business Insider, Wall Street Journal. The narrative flipped overnight. I was no longer the spoiled founder. I was a victim of sophisticated corporate theft. But my parents were smart and desperate. They made a move I did not see coming. 3 days after the Wired article published, my parents' attorney filed a motion in federal court. They claimed that I had illegally accessed their email servers to obtain the evidence. They provided testimony from their IT administrator, that their systems had been breached from an IP address traced to a public library near the shelter where I was staying. They claimed I had hacked them. The Manhattan District Attorney opened a criminal investigation into unauthorized computer access, a state charge, separate from the federal case. And worse, they got a judge to issue an order all evidence obtained from the allegedly hacked emails was inadmissible pending investigation of how I accessed them. My evidence was tainted. Diane Porter called me furious. "Did you hack their servers?" "No," I said. "I accessed my own old email account, my personal account. I found emails they sent to me or CC'd me on years ago. That is not hacking. That is accessing my own data." But the damage was done. The court ordered a forensic investigation of how the emails were obtained. This would take weeks. Meanwhile, the SEC investigation slowed. Without the email evidence being admissible, their case weakened. My parents went on the offensive. They held a press conference. My father, looking distinguished and hurt, spoke to cameras outside their Connecticut estate. "Our son has become obsessed and unstable. He has made wild accusations, filed frivolous lawsuits, and now apparently hacked our private communications. We fear for our safety. We have obtained a restraining order. We hope Ferdinand gets the help he needs, but we cannot allow him to continue disrupting the company he once founded or threatening our family." The optics were devastating. Concerned parents worried about their troubled son. Courtney gave interviews. She was poised, professional, sympathetic. "I love my brother. This has been heartbreaking for our family. I just want to run TechFlow well and honor the work Ferdinand started. I wish he could see that we are taking care of his legacy." She sounded so reasonable, so kind. The media ate it up. TechFlow's board released a statement supporting Courtney and expressing concern about my ongoing harassment. Employees signed a petition asking me to stop disrupting the company. Graham was among the signatories. That hurt more than anything. The forensic investigation into the emails took 3 weeks. The examiner's report concluded that I had accessed my own email account using my own credentials. I had not hacked anything. The emails were legitimately mine, but by then, the narrative had shifted again. Even though I was cleared of hacking, the public saw a messy family fight, reasonable parents and sister on one side, unstable, obsessed son on the other. My criminal conviction stood. The judge refused to vacate it despite the new evidence. Mr. Blackwell still committed the acts he was convicted of. The underlying business dispute, while clearly contentious, does not excuse his criminal conduct. My sentencing was reset. 2 weeks out, I was going to prison. 14 to 20 months. Federal facility. Felony record. My life was over. I had lost everything. My company, my reputation, my relationships, my freedom. I sat in the shelter the night before my sentencing, and I felt nothing, just emptiness. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. "Hello," a woman's voice. "Is this Ferdinand Blackwell?" "Yes." "My name is Jennifer Torres. I am a former client of Hartford Financial Group. I read the articles about your case. I think your parents did the same thing to my family that they did to you. And I have evidence." I sat up. "What kind of evidence?" "Emails, contracts, documentation of how they defrauded my father's company 10 years ago. He died thinking it was his fault. But after reading about your case, I went through his old files. They did to him exactly what they did to you." I said, "Can you send me what you have?" She said, "I already sent it to that SEC investigator, Diane Porter. I thought you should know. You are not alone. My father was not alone. They have been doing this for years." We talked for an hour. She told me her father's story. A small manufacturing company in Hartford. Successful. Growing. My parents invested. Took board control. Forced him out. He lost everything. Died of a heart attack at 53, broken and bankrupt. Just like they tried to do to me. Jennifer said, "Do not give up Ferdinand. Someone has to stop them. Maybe you are that someone." But I did not feel like someone who could stop anything. I felt defeated. The next morning, I put on the borrowed suit again and went to court for what I thought was my final sentencing. Judge Valdez took the bench. "Mr. Blackwell, this court has received new information from the Securities and Exchange Commission. Information that substantially changes the context of your actions. She looked at the prosecutor. Mr. Whitmore, your office filed charges based on a complaint from Hartford Financial Group. Were you aware at the time that the complainant was under federal investigation for securities fraud? Whitmore looked shocked. No, Your Honor, we were not, the judge continued. The SEC has provided this court with evidence of a coordinated scheme by Hartford Financial Group to defraud multiple founders over a 10-year period. Mr. Blackwell appears to be one of several victims. While his actions in locking down TechFlow's systems were technically illegal, they were done in response to an ongoing fraud. She paused. I am vacating the conviction. All charges are dismissed. Mr. Blackwell, you are free to go. I stood there stunned. Did she just say what I thought she said? Marcus grabbed my arm. We won. You are free. But I did not feel like I had won. I was not going to prison, but I had still lost my company. My parents still controlled TechFlow. Courtney was still CEO. I walked out of that courthouse, and Diane Porter was waiting on the steps. She said the SEC is filing criminal charges against your parents tomorrow. Securities fraud, conspiracy, wire fraud, obstruction of justice for destroying evidence. We have enough for RICO charges, but we are starting with the basics. I said, what about TechFlow? That is a civil matter. But with your criminal conviction vacated, you can file a lawsuit, and you will win. Could I, though I had no money, no resources? My parents had unlimited legal budgets. She said, other victims are coming forward. We are building a class action against Hartford Financial Group. You would not be fighting alone. For the first time in 6 months, I felt something other than despair. I felt anger. Pure focused, righteous anger. They thought they could destroy me. They almost did. But I was still standing. And now, it was my turn. Over the next 3 weeks, everything I had been fighting for started coming together. The SEC moved fast once they had probable cause. They executed search warrants at Hartford Financial Group's offices in Connecticut, seized computers, files, emails, interviewed employees. The evidence was overwhelming. My parents had systematically targeted successful small companies for over a decade. Their pattern was consistent: invest enough to gain board control, install family members or associates as board members, engineer leadership changes, force out founders, transfer ownership. 7 companies before TechFlow. Dozens of founders destroyed. Douglas Brennan, facing potential prison time, agreed to cooperate fully with investigators. He provided testimony about his role, how my father had approached him years ago and recruited him to serve on various boards, how he was paid consulting fees off the books, how he always voted the way my father told him to. Walter Hayes did the same, testified to the SEC, admitted everything. The evidence included emails showing my parents discussing their targets, planning their moves, coordinating with corrupt board members. It showed payoffs, kickbacks, and systematic fraud. One email from my father to an associate said, "The key is patience. Let them build something valuable first. Then we move in, take control, and transfer the asset." The founders are usually too naive to see it coming until it is too late. Reading that made me physically sick, but there was more. Evidence that Hartford Financial Group had been using insider information from these board positions to trade stocks illegally. Evidence of tax fraud. Evidence of money laundering through shell companies. The SEC investigation expanded into a full criminal probe by the Department of Justice. Then my parents made their fatal mistake. Under pressure, knowing they were being investigated, they tried to destroy evidence, instructed their IT department to wipe email servers, shredded physical documents, deleted files. But the SEC had already issued a document preservation order weeks earlier. Destroying evidence after such an order is a federal crime, obstruction of justice. The FBI got involved. On a Wednesday morning, federal agents arrested Harold and Patricia Blackwell at their Connecticut estate. Perp walk handcuffs, the whole thing. Cameras everywhere. Exactly what they did to me, now happening to them. They were charged with multiple counts: securities fraud, wire fraud, conspiracy, obstruction of justice. Bail was set at $1 million each. They posted it immediately, but their assets were frozen pending trial. Hartford Financial Group's clients started pulling their money. The firm lost 2/3 of its assets under management within 2 weeks. They would not survive this. Courtney tried to distance herself from them. She released a statement: "I was unaware of any improper conduct by my parents. I am shocked and saddened by these allegations. My focus remains on leading TechFlow, but I knew the truth. She had been in those early emails. She knew what they were planning. She was complicit. I filed a civil lawsuit against my parents, against Courtney, against Douglas and Walter, against Hartford Financial Group. The claims fraud, conspiracy, breach of fiduciary duty, RICO violations. I sought return of my company damages, disgorgement of profits, punitive damages. Marcus filed it pro bono now. He believed in the case. Other attorneys joined, seeing the class action potential for other victims. We had resources now. The media coverage exploded. Amy Carlson's follow-up article in Wired went viral. The tech founder who fought back and won. TechCrunch, Business Insider, Wall Street Journal, all covered the story. The narrative had completely flipped. I was no longer the unstable founder. I was the victim who refused to give up, the David who fought Goliath. Social media exploded. A hashtag trended, "Justice for Ferdinand." Tech founders everywhere shared stories of similar experiences with predatory investors. TechFlow's board held an emergency meeting. The company's reputation was in free fall. Clients were nervous. Employees were demoralized. The valuation dropped from $250 million to $180 million in 2 weeks. Angela Morrison, the board member who had voted against Courtney from the beginning, called me, "Ferdinand, I am so sorry. I should have fought harder for you. I knew something was wrong, but I did not have proof. Can you forgive me?" I said, "You were the only one who voted for me. Thank you for that." She said, "The board wants to discuss a settlement. Are you willing to talk?" A settlement. After everything they wanted to settle, the terms they offered were generous. Full return of my 45% equity. Courtney would step down as CEO. My parents would divest completely. $2 million in damages to compensate me for legal fees and suffering. A public apology from Courtney and the board. They would support my motion to have my criminal record sealed, given the conviction was vacated. In exchange, I would drop the civil lawsuit, not testify against my parents in their criminal trial, and sign a non-disparagement agreement. Marcus sat with me reviewing the offer. "This is a good deal, Ferdinand. You get your company back. You get compensation. You get your reputation restored. Take it." Diane Porter came to the meeting. She said, "We do not need your testimony against your parents. We have enough evidence, but your testimony would seal it. Make absolutely certain they go to prison for a long time." I thought about it. The offer gave me everything I had been fighting for. My company, my equity, money to rebuild, my reputation, but it meant my parents might get lighter sentences. Their attorneys would cut deals. They might serve a few years instead of a decade. Graham called me that night. "Ferdinand, I heard about the settlement offer. You should take it. You won. Do not be vindictive." Charlotte, his wife, got on the phone. "Please, Ferdinand. Graham has been so stressed. We just had the baby. We need this to be over. Take the deal. Move on." Even Jenna, my ex-girlfriend, reached out. "I saw the news. I am happy for you. Take the settlement. Get your life back." Everyone told me to take it. But then I found one more piece of evidence. An SEC investigator sent me emails they had recovered from my parents' personal server. Emails from 7 years ago, before TechFlow existed. One from my father to my mother: "Ferdinand has no real ambition, wastes his time on computers. Maybe if he ever builds something worthwhile, we can use it to give Courtney a real career. She is the one with true potential." My mother's response: "Agreed. If our son ever amounts to anything, we will find a way to transfer it to our daughter. She deserves success more than he does. We will position ourselves when the time comes." This was from before I had even started TechFlow. They were planning to steal whatever I created before I created it. They never believed in me. They just waited for me to build something they could take. The cruelty was staggering. I showed these emails to the woman who ran the homeless shelter where I had stayed. Her name was Ruth. She had become a friend during my darkest days. She read them and looked at me. "What do you want, Ferdinand, revenge or justice?" I thought about that question for a long time. Revenge would be making them suffer the way they made me suffer. Justice would be making sure they faced consequences and could never do this to anyone else. I realized I wanted justice. I declined the settlement. Marcus thought I was crazy. "You could have everything back today. Why are you risking it?" I said, "Because this is not about me anymore. They destroyed 7 other founders before me. How many more would they destroy if we let them off easy? Someone has to stop them. I guess it is me. The civil trial was scheduled for 3 months out. My parents' criminal trial was set for 2 months out. I would testify at both. By declining the settlement, I was gambling everything again. If the SEC case fell apart, somehow if my parents' attorneys found a way to beat the charges, I might end up with nothing. But some things matter more than personal gain. The media covered my decision. Tech founder rejects settlement, chooses justice over money. Public opinion was overwhelmingly supportive. I became a symbol of refusing to compromise with corruption. Other victims came forward. Founders my parents had destroyed over the years. They joined my lawsuit. We built a class action. TechFlow's board panicked. The company was hemorrhaging value. Clients were leaving. Without a resolution, the company might collapse. Courtney tried one more time. She came to see me personally. Met me at a coffee shop in Manhattan. She looked tired, scared. "Ferdinand, please, I am sorry. I know what I did was wrong. But if this trial happens, TechFlow will be destroyed. All those employees, their families, their livelihoods, is your pride worth that?" I said, "This is not about pride. This is about accountability." She said I was 22 when they started planning this. They manipulated me too. Told me I deserved success, that you did not appreciate what you had. I believed them. I said, "You are 28 now. You have had years to do the right thing. You chose not to." She left crying. I felt no satisfaction. My parents' criminal trial started first. Federal courthouse in Manhattan. Media circus outside. The prosecution presented overwhelming evidence. Emails, financial records, testimony from Douglas and Walter, testimony from other victims, testimony from Hartford employees. My turn came on day 7. I took the stand. The prosecutor asked me to tell my story. I did, calmly, factually. 3 days of testimony, describing how I built TechFlow, how my parents approached me, how they manipulated me into accepting their investment, how they engineered the takeover, how they destroyed my life when I resisted. The defense tried to paint me as a vengeful son making up stories, but I had emails, documents, timeline. Everything was documented. Cross-examination was brutal. My parents' attorney, an expensive lawyer from a white shoe firm, tried to break me down, tried to make me angry, emotional, unreliable. But I stayed calm, answered every question directly, did not take the bait. The jury watched me carefully. I could see some of them sympathizing. Other victims testified too. The founders of companies Hartford had destroyed. Stories similar to mine, patterns of behavior spanning a decade. The trial lasted 6 weeks. The jury deliberated for 2 days. Verdict: guilty on all counts. My father was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison. My mother was sentenced to 6 years. No parole for federal crimes. They would serve at least 85% of their sentences. Hartford Financial Group was fined $50 million. The firm would be dissolved. Client assets distributed. The company was finished. Douglas and Walter received lighter sentences for cooperating 3 years each. The civil trial happened next. My lawsuit against Courtney and the Hartford entities. Courtney's defense was that she had been manipulated by our parents, that she thought the takeover was legitimate, that she did not know about the fraud. But I had emails proving she knew. From years ago, discussing the plans, encouraging them, benefiting from them. The jury found in my favor on every claim. The judgment: full return of my 45% equity in TechFlow. All shares my parents had given to Courtney were redistributed to me. I now owned 60% of the company, my original 45%, plus most of my parents' 40%. Graham kept his 15%, $25 million in damages, the bulk coming from Hartford's remaining assets. Courtney had to resign as CEO immediately. She had to issue a public apology. Punitive damages of $5 million. The board restructured completely. Douglas and Walter were gone, facing their own legal consequences. New independent directors appointed. People with actual integrity. The board asked me to return as CEO. I accepted. I walked into TechFlow headquarters on a Monday morning. My company, mine again. Employees gathered in the main office space. Some looked ashamed. Others looked relieved. Graham stood at the front. I addressed them. I am back. Not to punish anyone, not to hold grudges, but to rebuild what we started. If you want to be part of that, I am glad to have you. If not, I understand. Most stayed. A few left. That was okay. Graham and I had a long conversation. His voice broke. I am so sorry, Ferdinand. I should have trusted you. I was scared, and I made a coward's choice. I said, you did what you had to do to protect your family. I do not blame you for that. Can we move forward? He nodded. Thank you. Our friendship would never be exactly what it was, but it could be something new, something honest. TechFlow came back stronger than anyone expected. Within 6 months of my return as CEO, we had stabilized all client relationships, signed 4 new major contracts, and increased our valuation to $300 million. The employees who stayed were loyal and motivated. We had survived a scandal that would have destroyed most companies. That built a certain resilience, a certain pride. I brought in new leadership, hired a chief operating officer who had experience running companies through crisis, promoted talented people from within who had stayed loyal, built a culture focused on transparency and ethics. Graham and I worked side by side again. It took time to rebuild trust, but we got there. His daughter Emma turned 1 year old. I was at her birthday party. Charlotte hugged me and said, "Thank you for forgiving us." I restructured my ownership, gave equity to long-term employees who had stood by me, created an employee stock ownership plan, shared the wealth with people who built the company alongside me. With the $25 million settlement, I paid off all my debts. Marcus, Sarah, everyone who helped me got paid in full plus bonuses. I donated $5 million to establish the Founder Defense Fund, a nonprofit providing legal support to entrepreneurs facing predatory investors. We have helped 37 founders in 2 years. I bought a modest apartment in Brooklyn. Not the luxury place from before. Something comfortable but not ostentatious. Money means less to me now than it did. My relationship status changed too. Jenna reached out after everything resolved, apologized for not believing in me, asked if we could try again. I was gracious but honest. I needed someone who would stand by me in the darkness. You could not do that. I understand why, but it means we are not right for each other. I started dating someone new about a year later. Sophia. She is a public defender in Brooklyn. She fights for people every day who cannot afford good lawyers. She understood why I fought so hard because fighting for justice is what she does. We have been together 18 months now. It is different from my relationship with Jenna. Built on shared values instead of shared success. Healthier, deeper. My parents are in federal prison. My father is at a facility in Pennsylvania. My mother is in West Virginia. I have not visited them. Maybe someday I will find forgiveness, but not yet, maybe never. Courtney tried to apologize through intermediaries, sent letters, asked to meet. I did not respond. Some wounds are too deep to heal with words. She works at a small consulting firm now. Her reputation in business is destroyed. She will never run another company. Part of me feels bad for her. She was young when this started, influenced by our parents. But she made her own choices. She has to live with them. I testified before Congress about predatory investment practices. Helped draft legislation protecting founders from the kind of tactics my parents used. The bill passed with bipartisan support. It is called the Founder Protection Act. Requires increased transparency in investment agreements, protects founders' intellectual property rights, and creates penalties for board members who engage in conflicts of interest. The media coverage continued for months. I did interviews but stayed humble. This story is not really about me. It is about every founder who has been betrayed, every entrepreneur who has been told they are just the builder. Forbes featured me, the founder who fought back and won. Business Insider did a documentary about the case. I used the platform to advocate for founder rights, for ethical investing, for standing up to corruption. TechFlow is now valued at $400 million. We doubled in size. We are profitable, growing, and we treat our people right. We have a new mission statement, built by founders for founders. Every contract we write, every client we serve, every employee we hire, we do it with integrity. My parents' legacy is prison and disgrace. Hartford Financial Group is gone, dissolved, destroyed. The clients they defrauded have been compensated through the settlement funds. The founders they destroyed have received justice. Was it worth it? People ask me that all the time. 2 years of hell, losing everything, facing prison, living in a shelter, being betrayed by everyone I trusted. Was fighting for justice worth all of that? Yes. Without hesitation, yes, because I did not just win back my company. I won back my self-respect. I proved that truth matters, that justice matters, that fighting for what is right matters even when everyone tells you to give up. Here is what I learned through all of this. Your work, your creation, your dream is worth fighting for, not because of money or success, but because of what it represents. When I built TechFlow, I poured my soul into it. Every line of code, every client meeting, every late night was mine. When someone tries to take what is yours through lies and betrayal, you have a choice. You can accept it, move on, be practical. Many people will tell you that is the smart move. Or you can fight. Fighting is not about revenge. It is about refusing to let injustice win. It is about standing up and saying, no, this is wrong, and I will not pretend it is okay just because it is easier. The people who truly love you will stand by you even when you have nothing. And the people who only valued you for your success will abandon you the moment things get hard. That is a painful lesson, but a valuable one. Resilience is not about never falling down. It is about getting back up when everyone says you should stay down. When the smart move is to quit, when even you are not sure you can keep going. Sometimes the right choice is also the hardest choice. Turning down that settlement was the scariest decision I ever made. But it was right, because some things matter more than personal gain. And, most importantly, you are not just the builder. You are not just anything. When you create something, when you build something from nothing, you are an architect of the future. Do not let anyone diminish that. Do not let anyone tell you your role was small or replaceable. My parents thought they could take what I built and give it to someone they deemed more worthy. They learned they were wrong. Because you can steal a company, but you cannot steal the spirit that built it. You can take ownership, but you cannot take creation. Today I stand in the TechFlow office every morning with my coffee watching employees arrive, knowing we built something real, something honest, something that survived corruption and came out stronger. Graham walks up. Board meeting at 9. Q4 numbers look incredible. I smile. Let us see what we built. He grins. What we are still building. We walk into the conference room together. The company we built, saved and reclaimed. Not perfect, but ours. Earned through blood, sweat, and refusing to surrender. I look at the TechFlow logo on the wall, and I feel something I have not felt in years. Peace. I am home. If you are facing betrayal right now, if someone is trying to take what is yours, if you feel powerless, hear me. Do not give up. The fight might be long. It might cost you everything. But your dignity, your creation, your truth is worth fighting for. You are not just the builder. You are the architect, the creator, the dreamer who made something from nothing. And no one can take that from you unless you let them. Stand up, fight back, win. Now, I want to ask you something. Have you ever felt like someone tried to take credit for your work or steal something you created? How did you handle it? Did you fight back or walk away? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, if it gave you hope or inspiration, or just made you feel something, please hit that like button. It helps more people find these stories. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss another story about real people fighting for justice and winning against impossible odds. And share this with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who is going through their own battle. Someone who needs to know that fighting for what is right is always worth it. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. I hope wherever you are in your journey, whatever you are facing, you find the strength to keep fighting. You find the courage to stand up for yourself. And you find the peace that comes from knowing you did the right thing no matter the cost. Take care of yourselves. Protect what you build. And never ever let anyone tell you that you are just the builder.